Hey everybody, Tag Life Done Free. Today I present Starve the Beast 13, and it really should be Starve the Beast 1. Today we take a look at the family, the nuclear family, and really men, and how men have failed, and how because we have failed, society is the way that it is. But anyway, if you're interested in, the nuclear family, how it's fallen apart, and why it's so important we get it back together, come on, let's check it out. The well-being of our children in our society is on the decline. I would argue that dads, or lack thereof, is the leading cause. The problem with fatherless families is largely ignored and denied, and in fact, it is actually encouraged and celebrated through the legislative process in our country. Most of the social or cultural problems can be traced back to the problems of the family. The social consequences of the broken family is the very engine driving our broken culture. Families are the building blocks of society. A healthy and stable family will contribute to a healthy society, while broken families will push the very resources. Do you think it's just a coincidence that we experience the fall of the nuclear family and also the fall of society? Nothing to see here. Move along, right? Children are growing up without their fathers. The family unit has been attacked and dissolved to a level never seen in human history. This lack of good men in children's life is harming our kids and destroying our society. Over 40% of children born today are born to single mothers. More than 50% of marriages now end in divorce, and most often the custody of the children is awarded to the mother. Now, I'm sorry, ladies, I hate to say this, but mothers are simply not enough. Father deprivation, whether that's physical, economic, or emotional, that support from the fathers, or lack of support, should be considered neglect. Fathers have largely vanished from the family, and only mothers are left now to care for the children. Even in the cases that fathers are present physically, but they're just simply not there emotionally in the lives of their children. Many men today are addicted to things like, their smartphones, right? Drugs, pornography, and alcohol. Many more are forced to work long hours and multiple jobs just to provide the basic needs for their family in the face of the ever-declining purchasing power of the dollar. Regardless of the reason for their absence, the problem of absent fathers has reached an epidemic proportion, and a mother cannot fill a fatherless void. For men and women possess specific biological differences that translate into different yet complementary parenting styles. Men and women are not equal. And if you disagree with me, I want you to stop this video and I want you to go look up the definition of equal. Women are more compassionate and they're relationship oriented. When your child is sick, who do they look for? Mom or dad? Men are more competitive, they're aggressive, and orient towards those risk-taking and self-reliance activities. When a child wants to play, who do they look for? Mom or dad? And why do kids typically listen better to dads than moms? See, mothers provide children with a nurturing, safe, and emotionally secure environment. They make them kind. While fathers challenge the children, they push their boundaries and they help cultivate self-reliance. They make them tough. The world that kids are growing up today will require this toughness. The mental health of kids require both the mom and the dads. Kids need independence and emotional security. A psychological health is contingent on adequately satisfying both needs. The importance of the difference in gender from a parenting perspective is critical to the human condition. Men and women bring gifts. They bring different qualities to children, and this is super important for human development. The impact biological fathers have on their children cannot be replaced. And I say biological because in many cases, not all, guys, there's some great stepdads out there, but in many cases, stepfathers lack the biological ties that can manifest into a lack of investment of time or energy into a child. In addition, in many cases, stepfathers often see the children as competition for the mom's attention. There are even some studies today that suggest that stepfathers may actually make the problem's worth. These studies show that children who grow up without a physically and emotionally committed biological father are at a greater risk of suffering from emotional behavior and physical health problems. They are less likely to succeed educationally and socially, and once they grow up, they are more prone to dysfunctional relationships. It's crazy how the troubles that a family suffers just gets passed on from generation to generation to generation, and I wonder whose fault that is. The problem we fail to face today, your sons and your daughters, they're going to face sometime, right? What we do today, all we're doing is putting off the fight for them. Boy, talk about selfish, right? The majority of society today would rather allow their children to face the battle than for them to face it themselves. We should be ashamed. Most people today do not possess the intestinal fortitude to break the cycle their parents have passed along. Girls who grow up without fathers are 75% more likely to become single teen mothers. And boys are equally more likely to become criminals. See, everything that is bad and can happen to a child occurs at a much elevated rate when a child is missing their father. Once a family goes through the divorce, the quality of time fathers spend with their kids dramatically declines. Our justice system has been systematically built to remove the father and to vilify his position in the family. Moms are encouraged to separate their kids. It's done under the guise of protect them, but it's really nothing more than to hurt them. Following a year after divorce, only 1 in 10 children have weekly contact with their fathers. Only 1 in 10, and almost 70% of kids have no contact at all. See, a mother's bond to their child is primal, right? She gives birth. This bond is rarely interrupted. A father's bond with their children is often tied to this nice little package with the mom. We often see it as one. Men are programmed to believe if the relationship with the mother ends, that we have very little rights and our only value is to be a bank. Because the mother most often gets the vast majority of the time with the child, right? Their version of what happened or their version of life is what the kids now know. What percentage of newly divorced mothers do you suppose speak well of their child's father? This is certainly not a bash on mothers, because in our current society, both genders are programmed to be selfish. In fact, if a father were most often the caregivers, they would spew the same negative statements as the mothers often do. If you're talking about your child's mother or your child's father, just remember that their blood runs in your child's veins, and when you attack your ex, you attack that child. They may not say something about it, but they know it, they feel it. You need to stop being selfish. History tells us that society always places a huge emphasis on the bond of marriage. Its function really was just to bind man to his wife for the benefit of the children, and then ultimately that was the benefit to society as a whole. All men have the ability to father, but they all also have the ability to stray. This is why every successful society imposes social pressures for the benefit of marriage, or at least they used to, right? Today's society rewards both mom and dad if they stray. Ladies are under a constant barrage of, you don't need a man, you can do anything he can do, you can probably do it better, which is simply not true. And men are encouraged to leave, or even more, just not commit, with the pressures of losing their kids. Through a man's eyes, in many cases, the investment simply isn't worth it. Prior to the 20th century, marriage was something that we were taught to look forward to. It was something sacred. Men judged themselves by how well they provided, and a woman judged herself by how healthy their family was. This crumbly thing called marriage is at full steam. Kids today avoid marriage, and the ones that do get married statistically will be divorced soon. If you want to destroy a culture, if you want to undercut men and their contributions to the current world, this would be a fabulous blueprint. Now, men are not without blame, right? See, back in the 60s, it brought forth the sexual revolution. Being easy was normalized. More and more females were willing to engage in that low-commitment relationship. It was easy for men to run from monogamy, right? Men were supposed to be the leader of the family, but instead, they took the easy way out. This was the beginning of the end. See, there are always unintended consequences. What we thought of this, wonderful thing in the peace movement and the woman's lib movement ended up destroying the family. All along, men allowed it. Carl Trueman said, "Sex focused on procreation and family is the repressive weapon of a capitalist society. And free love and untrammeled sex experimentation are the central part of the revolutionary liberation of society." To transform society politically, one must transform society sexually. And sexual morals of late capitalism, focused as they are on the maintenance of monogamy and the nuclear family, are actually no longer necessary as it once were. He also said that a societal-wide deterioration in values has also weakened in the institution of marriage. Responsibility and commitment to others have fallen by the wayside and been replaced by a narcissistic obsession with ego fulfillment. See, in the past, marriage was designed to create this economic and reproductive partnership for the sake of raising children. And today it's been replaced by a vehicle designed for satisfying one's needs. I want to read that again. Marriage was designed to create an economic and reproductive partnership for the sake of raising children. Today, it's been replaced by a vehicle designed for satisfying one's desires. So instead of a union designed for raising children, it's designed for one's pleasures. See, so the outcome of this is when the dating phase ends, right? When one person feels unfulfilled or unloved, we quickly seek divorce because it was only built on one's needs or desires. Many of you have heard me talk about how men and women, although worth the same, are not equal. We have very different primal roles. The fall of the family can be placed on the men for not standing up, not rising to the equation. Men dropped the ball. Society has made it all too easy. They have created this guilt-free solution to an unhappy marriage. It's caused divorce, and then they've normalized it. If breaking up is better for the parents, it must be better for the children. Correct? Right? Now, if you're in an abusive relationship, if you're in a highly dysfunctional relationship, it should end, right? Living in chaos isn't good for anyone. But if you were just simply bored with your marriage, you must dig deep and remember what brought you together. How did we get to a spot where we give up so easily? If we are going to bring back our ways or create this new world, it's going to begin with fathers, and fathers have to step up. We have to revitalize the commitment between a man and a woman. Now, I'm not talking about this, legal binding marriage in the eyes of the state. I don't care about that. And in fact, I wouldn't need it in my life, right? So it can absolutely be avoided. But what I'm talking about is the commitment two people make for better or for worse, for richer or for poor, right? This commitment, if we're ever going to take it back, has to come back. While marriage benefits children, committed fatherhood promotes a well-being and fulfillment of men. The well-being of men is critical to a healthy culture and a productive society. Family life motivates men to positively channel those aggressions and that energy and cultivate the virtues of honesty and trust, self-sacrifice, and discipline. These virtues are necessary to support and to become a role model for children. Men have more difficulty forming social relationships, right, than women. Women, is much easier to a female. A man without a wife and a child is often a man without any close relationships at all. There is a civilizing effect for men in merely being in the company of women and children, right? They tame us. It's been all interesting to me over my life to think, how it is that, in every relationship I've ever been in, I've been the biggest, the strongest, but yet they have a way of taming that, right? An environment which typically promotes, life-enhancing values is the outcome of this. Men's instinct is to protect, and if we have something worth protecting. If fathers continue to stray, we can expect to see a nation of men who, at the worst, are morally completely out of control, and at their very best are unhappy, unhealthy, and unfulfilled. But it is children who will suffer the most from the absent father, as children are the future of society, and society suffers by extension. Absent fathers translate into broken children, and broken children at the risk of growing up to be broken men and women who perpetrate this very social dysfunction. They pass it from generation to generation. What society does to its children, so will its children do to society. I wonder how many men understand that the impacts they have by straying, the impacts they have by running, the impacts they have by not living up to their responsibility ripples from generation to generation to generation. 60% of all youth suicides today belong to a fatherless family. 80% of rapists and 75% of chemically dependent children reside in a single mother household. A single mother households are now 711% more likely to have pregnant teenagers and 90% more likely for those teenagers to be divorced. 90% of homeless kids today are from a single mother home. In our world today, single mom homes represent on average 7%. So let me say that another way. So if you look at the world as an average, 7% of all homes out there are represented in single mother homes. But what's interesting is in China it's only 3%, and in India it's only 4%. But yet the land of the free, right? The beacon of hope, as Reagan once said, in the United States today, 23% of homes are fatherless, number 1 in the world. In the USA, even homes with fathers now average less than 30 minutes per week of one-on-one child and dad time. And now compare this to the 44 hours per week of TV and video game time. So who's to blame, right? Our system systematically preys on women by vilifying the father, right? And then they send this, this woman down this spiral that's pretty hard to recover from, right? And they often don't know it. They may see because they make it easy for men to walk away from the marriage, right? They make it easy for women to walk away. Welfare benefits are reduced or removed when the father is home. I mean, why in the world would you want to get married if you're going to lose your free lunch? Should we blame the system? I mean, after all, it's the worst in the world, right? Not me. I blame the dads because we didn't stop it. We didn't stand. We took the easy way out. We betrayed our role. You want to starve the beast? You want to make a difference? Hold the line and be a great dad.